Hello, well, here we are for week 4 of employability. Um, and This week we're going to look at making the group video, the technicalities of it and what you need to do. And then we're also going to look ahead to assignment 2, where you need to submit some documents in writing ahead of the interviews. And so you need to prepare those. So that's the first task that you'll be doing as soon as you've finished assignment 1. So we're going to be looking at examples of good presentation techniques, and also some explain the opportunities that you get in class to ask questions about the assignment. So first we'll be talking about recording your videos and also the marking grid for assignment 1, and then we'll look at assignments 2 and 3. So first of all, let's talk about structuring your presentation and your group video. Now let's recall first of all that there is a way to make an academic presentation, and that's this way, and I don't want you to use it. So, right, okay, forget that way. Instead, make a proper business presentation, and to do that you start the opposite way round. You start with your conclusions and you carry on, say, well, first of all we concluded this, and then, well, why did you conclude that? You explained your rationale, and then, well, okay, what's the exact logic of that, and so on. Well, and then, well, where did you get that data from, and so on. But the most important thing is what you conclude. So a good structure might be like this. We start with a title slide. Very, very briefly, you're going to talk about that. Then the first serious substantive slide is your introduction and conclusions. Right there at the beginning, we conclude this, and then why. Okay, so the approximate time taken on the title slide as you all introduce yourselves as a group of 4 or 5 people will be about 15 seconds. Then you need to be quite smart on your timing to describe your introduction and conclusions, and keep all of that within 3 minutes. And then you get on to your next slide or 2, which is your second speaker. That's 3 minutes. Then speaker 3 for 3 minutes, and then speaker 4 for 3 minutes. And you will have references at the back, but you won't talk about those, not in a presentation. Okay, and your introduction and conclusion would be, well, why not make it graphic, and set your future projections against the past, as we recommend. Okay, so that's what the kind of things that we would be expecting you to do. Here's an example of how not to do it. A boring text slide full of writing, lots and lots of words, and so on. Please don't do that. That doesn't make a good presentation. Most people would be bored witless by it. It's not meant to be a book or a paper. It's meant to be a presentation, and therefore there should not be too many words on it. On the other hand, don't go the opposite way and just have, lots of lovely pictures and then a incomprehensible conclusion as to why the answer is 37 or whatever it is that you conclude. There's got to be a logic to why you're concluding something at the end. Now, let's look at 6 steps to creating your video. And the first thing to do is, in your conclusion, in your video, is to state the issue and your conclusions first. And 3 minutes per person. For a group of 5, we would allow 15 minutes. The general rule of thumb when making a presentation is that a slide takes on average about 2 minutes. So given that you've got only 12 minutes, that means really 6 substantive slides, and then that's up to you to divide it between your 4 speakers. So that's the rule. You've got to decide that as a group, okay? And you're not going to talk about your references, but they will be there at the end. Some other rules of thumb: don't rush. think of David Attenborough. He's very calm and so on, and yet he's very passionate. He makes his case very, very passionately, and all the best speakers manage to do that. Do try to be visual. Let your images show, and let your words make the connections and link things up. Also, as a practical rule, a lot of people look down at notes that they've written on bits of paper or down increasingly at their phones for their script. No, try not to do that. That's a poor thing, and it automatically loses our attention because you're not talking to the camera. You're looking down, looking it away, and that is not a good way to sell to a person. It's not a good way to convey an idea. If I really want to persuade you, then I have to do it as a piece to camera. Now, you're then going to have to make a decision as a group on what recording option you're going to use, and we recommend that you either use Zoom or you use Google Meets. So choose that. So what we would recommend is one member of your team goes out and just literally tests them and finds out which they find easier to use, and just tries to do a couple of recordings and then to save and record them and then to upload them and this kind of thing, and tells you what you find the easiest. Okay. And then you all agree to that or not. The second thing to do is to fix a date and time when you're actually going to all make the group recording. You're going to have an online group meeting and then turn that into a recorded group meeting where you make presentations. That's how we're going to do this. Of course, if some person is really familiar with digital apps and wants to get into editing and so on, fine. But beware that the whole group then becomes very vulnerable to that person being the key person at the final stages. And if they were to suddenly be taken ill or something on the day, you would have a problem. So do beware of that. Next, go off and do your own presentation and practicing, and just practice it first and foremost. So to do it, you just create a meeting in Zoom or Google, a meeting just with yourself, and then you can press the record button, and then you can make a presentation, and then press stop and pause, and then carry on recording, and then stop, and then review it, listen to yourself and so on. And just practice using those buttons as you go and getting familiar with them and so on. And then, having made a recording, leave it a while. This is what they always say on writing courses and things like this. When you've done something artistic, do it, stop, and then come back to it some hours later when the pride of ownership has gone and you look at it more objectively and you think, yeah, really, I need to cut out this, or I shouldn't do that, or I spent too long on that, or whatever. Then re-record it again and have a look at the same thing again. So practice your own technique so that you're familiar with the recording techniques. Then, delete all the practice videos and check that your story is consistent with the rest of your groups, and check what the rest of your group is saying and that they're all at the same level as you. On the day when you come to record your group video, one person is going to have to host the meeting. At the beginning, of course, make sure that you switch off recording. And I think there is a little bit of editing software so that you can trim meetings at the beginning and the end just to get rid of those few things. Because the default is that the meeting is being recorded anyway under both of these apps. So you need to turn that off pretty quick. You want to trim those two bits off at the end. And then decide who's going to speak and in what order, and how they will lead into one other person and then to another. It ought to have a logical flow. But I would say, having done this for some time, that there is a problem in that if you muck it up in the later stages of your recording, so speaker, in effect, if you're doing 4 3-minute presentations, if speaker 3 makes a muck up of it and has a coughing fit or something, or says something completely wrong, and then can't sort of really recover immediately, then the only way to get back on it is to record the whole thing again, which is a bit of a pain. So what you really want are your most reliable speakers, confident perhaps, I don't know, but anyway, most reliable at the later position, 3 and 4. So think about that. It's a bit like in football when you have a penalty shootout and the first 5 penalties are going to go. Often they put your most reliable penalty taker, if it's the centre forward and he always bangs them in, you put him as number 4 or number 5. Or because then you're going to get one there, and that's usually when the pressure is the greatest. Okay, so there you are. You've got your running order. You press record. You introduce yourselves. Speaker 1. Then the other speakers mute themselves, and speaker 1 speaks for their 3 minutes. Then hands over to speaker 2. They are unmuted themselves before. Carry on straight in and finish their bit, and then hand over to speaker 3, who has unmuted themselves, and so on right through. You can always pause, and it might be a good idea to pause between speakers. And then when you've done, you press done. There's a done option, and then you press save. Absolutely vital to make sure that you have finally saved your material.